This is the Thought Leaders Podcast.
Hello, everyone. And today we are back with another kick-ass episode of the Thought Leaders Podcast. And today's episode is something that's been in the making for a very long time. And I am very excited, very, very freaking excited to bring you two individuals that, in my eyes, have done just as much for the fitness and bodybuilding community as the one and only Arnold Schwarzenegger. They have brought back the golden days, the glory years of bodybuilding and fitness. People are at gyms all over the world. These guys, whether they know it or not, are inspiring people. I'm in Tel Aviv. I work out. I know Generation Iron. And I want to say thank you guys for that. And we have Vlad Yudin and Edwin Mejia here, the co-founders of Generation Iron. Guys, how you doing?
What's up, man? That was a great intro right there.
Well, listen, we definitely don't bullshit on the podcast, and everything I did say really is from, the heart, and it's true. You guys have created this incredible company, this incredible media company that I turn on Netflix in Tel Aviv and I see amazing bodybuilding documentaries, right? Ronnie Coleman, the king, was on Joe Rogan 3 weeks ago, and everyone is talking about that, right? And you guys did the amazing documentary on Netflix. So, I mean, again, it's from my perspective, it's all true, everything I said. So thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you for having us, man. Appreciate it.
Okay, so let's just dive right in. I really want to talk about how Generation Iron evolved, how you guys met, kind of the story from the beginning. So really, wherever you guys want to start, just take it away.
Yeah, I guess I'll start. I mean, we've been producing film and docs for over 10 years now. And we initially, Vlad and I known each other from school. We went to Pace University here in New York together. We've known each other since school. We've been big fans of the arts. Obviously, being in New York, going to a predominantly, I would say, finance and entrepreneurship program here in New York. We were always, in pace to go and work in finance and create our own business. Vlad has always been passionate about film and the arts, and me coming and having a finance background, I always wanted to make sure that I can have an understanding of how to create a business, how to fundamentally grow a business, but more importantly, have stability, right? And I worked in finance for many years, but Vlad and I have known each other since school. And in 2008, we got together. We finally said, we wanted to create some projects together, some films. We got together. We started producing a movie called Last Day of Summer with Nikki Reed, who was initially in Twilight. And we had DJ Qualls in it. That movie actually was sold around the world. It was Vlad's first featured directing. And then, I got together with Vlad as a producing partner, and we started putting together content together. And that all started in 2008. And that kind of created the evolution of what, the Vlad company, Generation Iron Brands now is, obviously. So, we've been working together ever since. And that's kind of how the history kind of all started.
Okay. So it seems like you guys started as a regular. You guys did that one movie, which is really awesome. And then, so I guess you guys at some point decided to pivot into, the bodybuilding world, correct?
Yeah, we started making a film called The First Generation Iron. That was 2012, basically. And as we were making a film about bodybuilding, which was very unexplored sport at that time for the majority of the population, we realized that inside this industry, which was actually pretty big, just wasn't very out there yet. It's right before social media hit, Right. And we saw a big void in the bodybuilding industry for media content. We saw just magazines that were about to die because when Joe Weider, who was obviously kind of like the godfather of media bodybuilding, when he made those magazines, he sold them in roughly 2003. And the company who bought it never innovated anything. So we saw those magazines are about to die. The bodybuilders have no media really, and we saw a big void in this industry. And we thought that if we make quality content, we can cater to that audience, and also at the same time, explore further into this world and deliver the message to other people outside of the industry. That's why, a lot of people when they saw the first generation iron, they were very excited about it, and they were just kind of in awe, because they didn't know anything about this competition of Olympia. They didn't know anything about bodybuilders, and it was just something fresh, new. You know what I mean? So we built the Generation Iron Fitness Network to cater to the bodybuilding audience, to the fitness audience, but also just bring everybody in and introduce them to the fitness that way. So that's how it was formed originally.
Okay. So for Generation Iron, first of all, everyone watch it. Incredible documentary. So how did you guys kind of land on the bodybuilding world to do that first documentary?
Yeah, it's funny, Vlad, obviously, we had a meeting, we discussed it internally. He said, we have this opportunity, let's meet with, I believe it was, what was the director?
He was the Olympia director at the time, who was
Yeah.
organizing Olympia, and we had an opportunity to meet with him. But before we even met with him, we just kind of we were looking for different subjects for documentaries. We were working actually on like 5 different films at the time in development stages, and then the bodybuilding came up,
Right.
and then we met with the producer of Pumping Iron.
Okay.
Thought, why don't we? And Pumping Iron, actually, we both loved that film, right? We both watched it, and also many other people saw it. But that came out in 1975 or 77, actually. So you can just imagine how much time passed by without anybody else revisiting the topic of bodybuilding.
Yeah, so Jerome Gary, the original producer, and then we met with George Butler, who's the director of Pumping Iron back then, and we realized it was a huge opportunity to tell a story today, like a modern day version of Pumping Iron, and that's when we started to meet guys like Phil Heath, Kai Green, Branch Warren, all these new bodybuilders that people just didn't really understand well. And then Vlad and I realized after meeting them that they had a story to tell, and that not only that, they there was a lot of humor. They had a lot of charisma. These are guys that we can help humanize and tell their stories, and then we find them very fascinating as not only as bodybuilders, but also as personalities. Obviously, as Arnold says, bodybuilders are sculptors. And we just find it really fascinating being able to tell a story like that. So we started attending the Arnold Classic. We started going to the Olympia. We started, working with the producers of the Olympia and American Media Inc. at the time, who owned the Olympia. And we started putting together this film. And, we did a tour all the way from New York, all the way down through the South and all the way down west to Gold's Venice Gym. And that's how the movie came together.
Wow. The hardest part about what we do, honestly, with all these films is finding the right personalities. Even for the first generation, it was obviously Phil Heath was a champion at the time, and Kai Green was the underdog, right? But the other cast members are very important too, like Victor Martinez, Hide Yamagishi, Dennis Wolf. Because there was a lot of bodybuilders at the time, but we just had to really cast them to the point where they added something to the film and were fun to watch. So, and still to this day, we're making a new film right now, the fourth generation Iron. And it was the same thing, we had to really sit down to analyze all the people that eventually could be in it and really find the most interesting personalities and great stories. And that really goes a lot into what we do. That's probably the most important first step of any project that we do.
Mm-hmm. So when you guys went into the Generation Iron project, did you guys know the plan of, okay, we're going to want to tell this specific story? Or it seems like you guys were kind of outsiders in the bodybuilding world. So it was kind of, why don't we meet the people and let them take us to wherever it is that they'll take us?
No, we're definitely outsiders, especially in the first movie, we were making the first film. But I think the people in the industry were not going to be able to make a film like this, because to them it's very ordinary. The world they live in, it becomes ordinary. We saw it as extraordinary, so we were able to highlight certain important points, right? We were able to identify it, because to us it was a brand new world. So I feel like in that we had an advantage. People that are too close to it, who are inside of that world, they don't see sort of like the little details, intricate details that we'll be able to, to put in the film.
Yeah.
Right.
As you guys are talking right now, I'm not sure, I know why, baseball keeps popping into my head, because baseball, as we all know, it's having a tough time modernizing, right? There's the old guard that doesn't want to change things. And I know that bodybuilding, up until, again, you guys really came along and started putting out content, was this insular closed community with the magazines and, I personally knew about the Arnold Classic and Mr. Olympia, but that was just from my dad. But I think a lot of people wouldn't. So was there that pushback for you guys? Like, hey, we don't want to do this? Or was everyone or the big players in the space kind of really receptive to you?
There isn't enough information out there. We didn't have enough data to really understand if they would be interested in releasing a movie on these bodybuilders. And obviously at the time, social media wasn't where it is today, where you have all these guys with 3-4 million followers, some of them. So ultimately we had to make a call. We had to put together the best possible film and movie and storyline. And as filmmakers at that time, we were in a position where we had to take the movie out, convince studio executives to give us a shot to release the film, put together a marketing plan and an agenda and ad campaign that helps support the film's release. And then we had to go out and get distributors overseas. So sometimes we're used to going to Cannes, Berlin, and all these film markets around the world to convince these companies to take on the film. And believe it or not, a lot of people just didn't understand the sport. They didn't understand the film and who these athletes were. A lot of people loved the movie, but they didn't really want to give it a shot. But what we did was we got together with stars at the time, and we were able to release the film and put together a really concrete agenda. And we released it and rolled it out directly here. And we created our own relationships with AMC, Regal, Cinemark, and all the theater chains. So we have our exhibitor relationship that had grown just from the experience in Generation Iron. Because we were able to bring in so much revenue, the film opened up the first weekend, top 5, top 10 documentary at the box office.
Independence.
I would say it's 2013, it was top 5 highest grossing doc at the box office. And it was number 1 documentary for weeks.
Wow.
Across AMC, Regal, Cinemark. And that essentially was able to solidify our relationships with exhibitors. And that ended up opening up relationships on the cable, transactional VOD side.
Okay. That seems like a crazy, and I would love to hear more about that. So you make this documentary, you finish, and then it seems like you guys got some rejections. So now you have to go and actually sell this to theater chains in the US. Am I understanding that correctly?
Exactly. Yeah.
Correct.
So what the hell is that like? I mean, where do you even go to get into an AMC theater? That seems like crazy. I can't even fathom what that looks like.
Yeah, it was interesting. At first, we realized that we had to put together a campaign, with AMC and Cinemark and show them the film and have them understand. With that campaign that was supported through commercials on, NCAA, ESPN for college, be able to pass from campaign, turning out to be very effective, and we were able to get placements across major markets, believe it or not, and able to play the week to be the X factor for the film's success in terms of longevity.
Okay.
But the biggest pushback we got was actually when after the movie came out, it became successful. We launched Generation Iron Fitness Network, right, which is the media company based. The biggest pushback we got was when we launched the Generation Iron Fitness Network.
Yeah.
And the pushback was from the other dying media companies in the fitness industry who had magazines, and they didn't want a new, visual company, video company to come in and take away their remaining audience, basically. So that was the biggest pushback we got. And obviously, 3-4 years later, the magazine's no longer being printed. The company that was controlling the Olympia got sold to somebody else. It got dismantled in many ways. So, that shows us what we were doing was the right way to go. And of course, with the help of social media and influencers that joined our team, basically, we were able to really, make Generation Iron the staple in bodybuilding now. And obviously, we bring in more people to the team all the time, the experts. GenerationIron.com right now is a very valid source for all information in fitness and bodybuilding. And we're going to continue doing, innovative things, both in, editorial content, video content, and long-form film content as well.
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought up the Generation Iron Network. So you guys launched the video, right? And then did you guys decide to say, okay, this worked we have an audience, let's turn this into its own company? Or was that kind of in the wheelhouse?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, what ended up happening was we realized that there was a huge movement that we had going on based on the movie that we had released. We realized there was a huge, community that we had created, loyal fan base. And we decided at that point, I believe in 2014, to invest into a digital media platform that would be catered to fitness, bodybuilding, strength sports, and even MMA content. And then we got together with our team. We had the producers in house. We had the team and the personnel and the writers and honestly all the content creation team to be able to support a network like that. And we essentially became a full-fledged digital media publisher that focuses on publishing news, editorial content, branded content, and entertainment for the fitness, bodybuilding, strength sports community. So we grew that, and as Vlad mentioned, we noticed that there was a huge opportunity, obviously, in the space for fitness and bodybuilding, considering the bodybuilding trade and media and outlets like Muscle and Fitness, Men's Fitness, which is now Men's Journal, and a lot of others. We're not really catering to the growth of social media and digital media in the fitness realm. And we took advantage of that. We realized that we can cater to our audience pretty, in a very sophisticated way through YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and be able to create content on a daily, monthly basis and support it with our long form story content. So, fast forward, I would say 6 years now, 5-6 years, and we have a tremendous catalog of long form content, stories, movies that we've either produced original content ourselves or have third-party content submitted. But most of our content, I would say 95% of it is original content that we've produced on movies like Ronnie Coleman the King, Generation Iron series, the Hurt Business that we did with UFC and Bellator, where we had Kevin Costner narrate, to movies like On CT Fletcher that have performed extremely well for us. Tremendous catalog. And then in addition to that, now we have podcasts as well. We have, original programs, original shows, you name it. And, Generation Iron Brands now owns many different brands across, the fitness space, like Strength Wars, which has 1.2 million subs on YouTube. Also we acquired a brand called Gym Fuckery, which you might know from the Gym Meme Fails on Instagram.
Yep.
Which has millions of followers. And it's a tremendous platform for user-generated content. So now Generation Iron Brands has become a preeminent digital media publisher creating education, entertainment, programming, and a pretty robust affiliate e-commerce business.
To me, when I first came across you guys a couple of years ago, and this is, I don't want to sound like too much of a kiss ass, but I just assumed you guys had been around for so long, and you guys are putting out, and you mentioned all the original content, but whenever I watch your stuff, and I'm really curious how you guys have figured this out, it's almost as if, it's not almost as if, I really feel that I'm watching something that could be out of a classic bodybuilding video from the 1970s. With that, you guys just have great visualization in the way it's produced, but yet it's about bodybuilders today. Have you guys noticed that? And do you know how you've curated that, to give that nostalgic feel to everything that's coming out today?
Good question. We would say, Vlad.
Yeah, when it comes to, and we have, when it comes to long form films, it's basically what we do is we approach each one of them a little bit differently, based on actual subject matter. Like the Ronnie Coleman the King, I feel like people love that one a lot is because of the drastic difference with him, Ronnie being, the way he is right now and when he was in his prime as a bodybuilder, It's a very emotional story that we were very familiar with, but when we delivered it to the people, I guess a lot of them were shocked by it because they didn't even know what he was going through. Like for instance, our film called Enhanced that came out last year, that was a shocking film because it depicts this guy, Tony Hughes, who experiments with all types of different steroids, you know, and he's not afraid to show it on camera. So I think the nostalgic feel is maybe comes from our, you know, appreciation from pumping iron film. You know, we studied it very closely before we made Generation Iron, the first one. So as we studied that film, we kind of wanted to mimic some of the storyline, not mimic the storylines, but mimic the actual feel, you know, which was nostalgic in the first one too. There was a lot of irony in it, you know. So I think that comes from just, you know, studying the styles of different other films, documentaries, and picking the right characters and the right people. It's almost like casting a film, you know. You got to pick the right actors to play the roles. Of course, in this case, they're real people, but you still want to, you know, find the best things out of the storylines that are going to be interesting to the people to watch. That's really 90% of what we do when it comes to the films.
Yeah, no, and that's awesome. I'm happy that you brought that up. So how, you know, I would love to hear kind of if you can, just a quick overview of what a creative process is for Generation Iron and the Vlad Art Company. So you guys, you know, when you're trying to make a new film, what does that room look like? Are you guys throwing ideas at a whiteboard, or how does it go from your head into a actual film?
Yeah, you know, right now so Generation Iron, we have this year we're going to put out a total of 6 films, feature films. Last year we put out 5 films. So we in constant, it's when you make a film, it's basically development stage, then it's production, then it's post-production. So we constantly in multiple levels of development, production, and post-production, right? So when a development stage is basically when an idea comes in place, and we really try to develop it and see if it can be made into a full-fledged film. Because some stuff that we do ends up just being, can be short-form content, for instance, for the website. It can be series, you know, that we do for free viewership. Or sometimes some ideas just don't go anywhere, you know. But if we see that the idea has legs, and it can be made into a film that people are going to watch, and specifically watch on larger platforms, you know, like Netflix and Hulu and stuff like that, we tend to, you know, push it to the next stage of production, basically. Mm-hmm. But development is where we try to create the most planning for the production, you know, kind of scripting it, meaning that, okay, this is the shot list that we're trying to hit, you know, this is the interviews that we're trying to get into this film. So all the planning happens in development, you know, pre-production development, I would say, for documentaries.
Yeah, and to add to that, I think a lot of it has to do also with the storylines. I mean, that can really appeal to a wider audience. I mean, you have guys like Dorian Yates, who a lot of people know that may not be into bodybuilding, but know who he is and his story. I mean, his stories like that, where he grew up as a skinhead, to, you know, him feeling depressed and wanting to kill himself at one point. I mean, those are pretty cool, interesting stories that people really want to learn about, you know. And then he goes through an ayahuasca experience. I mean, that's a story that we were able to tell with his movie that was released in November this past year. And then, you know, you have obviously guys like C.T. Fletcher, who's also, you know, from Compton, grew up with nothing, and then a guy that, you know, I think at one point broke the powerlifting record.
Yeah.
And battled with depression, but also battled with, you know, his father, who he looked at as a demon in a way. It's pretty interesting, and being able to get that feedback from Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, on telling us that it was the best movie, his best documentary he's ever seen. I mean, that was pretty interesting. And, you know, and we felt really, really, I mean, you know, happy to hear that. So there's stories like that we kind of tend to look at a little bit more closely and be able to tell the right stories. I mean, you know, those are things that we pride ourselves in. We want to be able to tell evergreen stories that people can continue to watch for years, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think that you really hit that, at least for me, it kind of puts it into perspective. And you guys are really good at humanizing people that a lot of people look at as kind of superhumans, right? These bodybuilders are literally physically larger than life individuals, and you give them an actual human face to them, which is really cool. And I think another, in my opinion, something that's come out of that is that you've created this community of people who not necessarily are bodybuilders, but people who really love the sport, which I think was missing for a long time, at least since, you know, the days of Arnold. So I was wondering if you guys want to touch on that for a little bit. And do you feel that, and is that something that you consciously did and are trying to curate, or it just kind of came with the movies and the website and everything?
Yeah, I think, part of our strategy was to, when we sit down, and look at opportunities for projects with certain individuals and certain talents, I mean, we tend to look at some of our data as well, and we say, what have we done with guys like, Kai, like Dorian, Callum, and all these other guys. And, we see what works, we see what people want to know more of. And that's kind of how we evaluate the opportunity to create more content. And then, being able to create these experiences with these projects with these athletes allows us to kind of understand what we can do with them, later on, and what we can kind of incorporate them into other projects in the future as well. So, we want to be able to have a diversified, I would say, catalog of projects that, people can come to us and say, these are projects that I can kind of, can fit my tastes. Sometimes, that you have guys that are into powerlifting, some guys that are into bodybuilding, old school bodybuilders, and the younger bodybuilders, and your classic, the classic physique guys. So we give everybody a taste of everything, and we have something for everyone that's interested in strength sports. And that's kind of how we create our content.
Okay. Yeah. Again, I think it's the stories you guys tell are just very, very powerful. So I would just kind of going back a little bit to generate the corporation generation or the business generation Iron. How were those first days? Was that kind of a scary thing that said, hey, we're going to take a movie that worked and now we're going to try to like build a business around it? Or it was like a no-brainer for you guys?
Yeah, with everything is always going to be a period of trial and error. You know what I mean? You have to, and that's, we always want to expand our audience. We always want to get more audiences involved and bring in mainstream audience as much as possible. But with that, you have to learn to cater to your main hardcore audience.
Right.
You got to be authentic, and that's where a lot of companies, I feel like they want to maybe expand into other things too fast. They want to incorporate other things too fast. I mean, we learned that we have to cater to the bodybuilding audience as the main audience, and then little by little expand to more and more and more. And that takes time, So we had to learn, and we had to really understand that the people that love bodybuilding and love the first film are the ones that we have to really make sure that they love our content now. And that's, it's a little tricky because bodybuilding is a very niche sport, as you know, right?
Right.
So you're not going to hit millions of people right away, when you build a network. So you have to kind of expand little by little every year. And that was, that's the biggest challenge, of course. Now that a few years later, the audience is growing, it's expanding, and now we have more people watching the films and the content, and traffic is growing exponentially. So, but in the beginning, you really have to deliver your content to basically to your core audience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we learned also, as part of the network itself and the digital media platform. I mean, we realized that premium content is really the X factor when it comes to growing an audience and being able to have an audience that can you can build affinity with and be able to have them continue to come to you. We realized that long form content is what's going to continue, and premium content is what's going to continue to have them to tune in and learn more about what you're doing and what we have going on, and obviously our stories and the content. But because right now what ends up happening is you end up having a lot of publishers out there that don't have the capabilities or the know-how to create long form content, and I think they try to differentiate themselves with short form digital media content, which is great, but sometimes people what we realize is that a lot of people out there are looking for stories. And as Vlad mentioned, we knew that we had a very loyal following and committed audience, and we wanted to continue to grow that and create and produce content that can continue to kind of like feed that pipeline, but also continue to give them more information, more content, and more news.
Right. So I'm so happy that you guys keep bringing up perfect questions. So you say digital media, right? And kind of what we were talking about before is that bodybuilding was this old school magazine. It's like, yeah, it's crazy. In 2003, I mean, they were still shipping magazines, right? Like the reason I know, so it's just on a personal level, the reason that I know about bodybuilding, right, is because my dad. My dad was, a big lifter in the basement growing up. I grew up in right outside New York City. We always had weights, like those standard 45-pound plates in the basement, which were just like, they call your name as a kid, and I was drawn to that. And then my dad, he definitely always, I feel like there was always pictures of Arnold around the house or things like that. It was names that were in, kind of embedded in my head. And I think about my dad here. And he's about 65 now. And if you would have told him, hey, all your bodybuilding content is going to be now on the internet and in documentaries. Now it sounds, of course, right. It's a given. Right. But when you guys started this, I mean, and I could be wrong, but it seems that, the bodybuilding community was skewing a little older. Was that a big challenge for you guys, or you found that pretty easy to kind of get them on?
No, I mean, it was not challenging to get the people on board because everybody was basically going in the social media route, and they were watching Netflix and nobody was reading magazines. Everybody was stopping to read magazines,
Right.
That's what those companies didn't understand, and it's because they had no passion for it. Joe Weider was the one that had passion for bodybuilding, right? He made all those magazines like Flex Magazine and Muscle and Fitness and all that, and then he sold it. He sold it at the peak. Early 2000s, basically, right? When he sold that his empire, basically, the new owners, they just had absolutely no passion for it at all. So they were kind of like dinosaurs in a way, they just didn't see the changes coming. And that's when you kind of don't govern with passion sometimes, you lose it, So, of course, everybody in the fitness industry, when the social media hit, when the movie hit, when everything else hit, they were adapting to it very quickly. And so when we saw the void, we right away wanted to take an opportunity, and make sure that people are getting the content via all these platforms, and of course the films, but some people discover, Generation Iron just as movies, let's say, right, just as Generation Iron the movie, right. Some people find us they just go to the website and kind of follow the website. Some people just know us from social media. It just depends, It's kind of like it's very segmented in a way, our business. But, of course, people that really follow us, they know what we are. They know the network and the publishing company and everything else. But, the people were not hard to get to follow us. It was just those other companies that were not adapting to the times. They knew they were losing their market share. And, of course, they were very unhappy about that.
I'm really happy you brought up the word passion. And I definitely see it in all of your content on the website and even Vlad, just seeing you on screen in a couple of the films, you can tell how invested you are, and Edwin with talking to you outside of today. I don't see it with everyone I talk to, but you guys, I really do feel the passion is there. Where is that coming from? Because I really would just love to know how you guys are so passionate about bodybuilding.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, we realized. I let Vlad speak on that too, but we kind of, when we look at Generation I, we look at an opportunity for us where we can create, inspiring content, inspiring movies, be able to continue to do our craft as filmmakers, and then be able to still become a multimedia publisher that can create content, that can create news, that can, bring awareness to, information about health, awareness for, entertainment, anything, related to what we love to do. And obviously with regards to what we've built over the years, we realize that this is an opportunity for us to continue to grow as the industry continues to change in the fitness world, in the publishing world. And we were able to pretty much bridge it all together. And we really believe in what we're doing because we have a great team here, obviously, that has seen the vision. And we have some of our guys here that have been with us for years from the beginning. And that also see the same vision. And that's why we're also very passionate about what we do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, outside of just, obviously, we both like the fitness lifestyle, before the film. But, what really also inspired us also is seeing these bodybuilders while making the first film, and see how much they put on the line for such a little prize money too. And they had passion for this, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't just the money opportunity for them at all, you know. It was just, they really liked that lifestyle. They put their health on the line so many times while doing it, you know. And that kind of, like, when you see that type of dedication, you also kind of get inspired, and you want to showcase what they do into the world, you know. So that also, you know, inspired us to document that more and more and more.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, the fitness aspect of it, you know, I realize, you know, obviously the health aspect of it. I mean, it's very inspirational for me. I mean, it changed my life and the way I look at fitness and the way I look at bodybuilding. I mean, it's more of a discipline, obviously, for me, being able to look at what these guys do every day and how they eat. You can take a little bit of that and apply it to your own life, and really it's life-changing because it creates good habits, it creates discipline, it creates, you know, an awareness of what you're eating and what you're putting into your body. I mean, those things, you know, really correlate to bodybuilding and fitness. And for us, it was very inspirational, but it also created a lifestyle for us.
The new film that we're about to release July 31st, is called Generation Iron, Natty for Life, which is the fourth installment in the Generation Iron film series. I think it's going to be extremely controversial. It's already causing a lot of controversy in the industry because the film basically covers natural bodybuilders, right? People that don't use any type of enhancements, just natural protein, you know, and eating and working out, basically, right? So it's going to be a controversial film because obviously steroids are controversial in itself in the fitness industry. Like, no matter what, it's always going to cause controversy. But this film is going to definitely, it's going to be interesting because I think a lot of people are going to kind of divide on its reception. And some people are going to maybe hate it, some people are going to love it, but it's going to cause a lot of dialogue. And we're getting ready for that right now. And I feel like it's going to be our most controversial film ever that we've done.
I think that I definitely identify with everything you guys are saying because, at least from my perspective, you know, when I'm hitting the gym and I'm trying to eat clean, you know, I don't go in with the mindset that, okay, I'm going to be a bodybuilder, but, you know, it's almost like when I mutter to myself, yeah, buddy, you know, echoing Ronnie, like, and I'm sure there is me and millions of people around the world doing that. It just gives you that little, you know, extra motivation, which is awesome. And then when it comes to the steroid front, so I mean, I'm as you guys know, I follow bodybuilding, so I'm aware of that, what's going on. But were you guys, because it doesn't seem, and I could be wrong, but you guys don't necessarily shy away from it sometimes, but you're not like hitting on it completely. Were you guys in the past, have you guys gotten backlash about, you know, steroids, or has it just been, you know, smooth sailing on that front?
It's always some people want to see more of steroids. Some people say we shouldn't cover it at all.
Right.
And it's always going to be, somebody's going to want it some way. You know what I'm saying? So we have films like Enhanced that just focus purely on steroids. We have some films that don't talk about steroids at all. We have some films that talk a little bit about steroids. You know what I mean? It just depends on what we're trying to, what kind of story it is.
Yeah. I mean, we try to bring an objective viewpoint to everything that we create. And obviously, we let the viewer decide, and obviously, you know, and have them, you know, understand, you know, what the perspective is that the story, from the story that's being told. So ultimately, you know, as filmmakers and producers, we want to be able to kind of get both sides, be able to tell a story, just similar to how we did on Generation Iron, where we had, you know, a few doctors and Dr. Jim Stepani on there talking about the effects and what causes and things that bodybuilders can do better and the industry can do better, because at the time that movie came out, it was a very taboo topic talking about steroids, and it still is today. But we're able to kind of insert an objective viewpoint in there that helps kind of elaborate on the story and be able to kind of tell the viewer what the story that we're trying to tell.
Yeah. So you know, and you guys definitely hit on that steroids have always been such a controversial topic.
Yeah.
So first of all, I think that slowly but surely it's becoming a little less controversial, but that could also just be because of the content that I consume. But what do you guys, you know, you guys are really industry insiders. Why do you think it's such a controversial topic for outsiders looking in?
Well, it's controversial because it's still illegal, obviously, to use it for bodybuilding purposes, for sport, for any type of performance enhancement, it's illegal to use. It's only legal to use when it's prescribed by a doctor in low dosages for TRT, basically, right? Other than that, it's illegal, basically. So you're talking about something that is illegal, but at the same time, people say that everybody's using it regardless. You know what I'm saying? So we're like in this weird situation where, but then, some people say they never use it in bodybuilding. You know what I mean? So it's like it's very hard to really know the truth sometimes. Of course, we know people that use it a lot. They use it all the time for bodybuilding purposes, and quite frankly, they even promote it. And some people use it, but they would never talk about it ever. And most pro bodybuilders actually would never openly, candidly talk about it because just like any other professional athlete would not talk about it. It's illegal, it's prohibited. You know what I'm saying? You can't talk about it when you're still a professional athlete. Some do when they retire, they talk about it, of course, openly, but it's just one of those taboo issues, And also the actual, effects of steroids, long-term effects are still not fully known. Changed over the years, and some people claim that it's very bad for you long-term, and some people say, no, it's actually great for you. So it's like, there's a lot of information out there, but it's not often backed up by science. It's a lot of the kind of like homegrown scientists getting this information out. So it's just hard to get the real truth about it.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, maybe I'm just, I'm listening to a lot of Joe Rogan. So maybe I'm coming from hey, it's not that controversial, but I could be wrong. And I'm sure people will obviously have their own thoughts and opinions. So I've been thinking, as we're talking here, and it's interesting because if I would compare, if we want to compare bodybuilding to a sport, let's say the NBA, the NHL, the NFL, right? There is a governing body, right? The NFL is run by the NFL. Now, obviously, there's a lot of different bodybuilding federations, but you guys are still, you're an outsider, but you're still the go-to source for that sport. So I was wondering if you guys can kind of talk about that relationship to the sport of bodybuilding, because I find it fascinating.
We always had great relationships with variety of federations. I think the main federation that everybody goes to is IFBB Pro, which is something that Joe and Ben Weider built together and has been running for many years. Right now, we just work with another organization called IMBA, PNBA, which is the drug tested organization. And we've never had issues with any organization really. It's been primarily just focusing on athletes and make sure that they support us, It's almost like, what's the relationship between NBA and ESPN? I'm guessing it's positive, but sometimes ESPN reports on a variety of different stories objectively. I'm sure NBA doesn't like all of it, but they still respect them as a network that delivers the content. You know what I mean? So I feel like we're kind of in the same position.
Yeah, I mean, I think 2013, 2014 was a turning point, really, because a lot of these federations realized that, back in the day, just for some context, these magazines or these federations would have exclusivity over the athletes that performed in their leagues.
Right.
So if you go and perform in the IFBB Pro League and then you go and perform in another league, they kind of like disband you in a way.
Yeah, of course.
And penalize you. That, to a degree, doesn't exist as much anymore. I think a lot of that has to do also with media coverage, and I think the athletes themselves in social media has provided a huge opportunities for talent and athletes, and fitness trainers around the world. So what's happened is it's opened up a lot of opportunities and media opportunities. And I think for us, working with the federations, they realize that at the end of the day, media is a positive thing, whether it comes in negative forms here and there, but I think there's more exposure to their federations, and they've, accepted that, and they've welcomed us with open arms, of course, throughout all the federations worldwide.
Yeah, no, that's well, I'm really glad to hear that, because right, it's kind of like the situation where that ESPN NBA relationship, which is really interesting. I'm glad you brought that up. It makes, you guys are kind of like that. you can do great in, in a federation, but you guys are the ones kind of reporting on it, and they still need you guys to get that exposure.
Yeah, and we've worked with the Arnold Classic. We've produced a broadcast there several years. We produced the Olympia live broadcast. So we've been big supporters of all those events, and obviously being able to bring that type of exposure to bodybuilding has allowed us to create more relationships. Early on when we did Generation Iron and all of our films, to be frank, I don't think the community in I would say the Bodybuilding Federation, the community itself, didn't realize how far these projects would go in bringing, shedding light into bodybuilding. And I think that's one of the reasons why Generation Iron today has continued to become the number one source.
Yeah. So, and before we go, I do want to touch on something that I think you guys, and again, you guys are doing just a phenomenal job, but the fitness industry, unfortunately, especially on the big bad internet, as they say, YouTube and the comment section, man, it's crazy. It's so toxic. So many brands out there that are just, oh my God, how could you work with that? And you guys, from what I've seen, have avoided that controversy. You don't get that ton of, and these are also good companies and bad companies that get tons and tons of negative feedback. And you guys are just, trucking away, doing amazing stuff. And there's not a lot of controversy when it comes to you guys. Maybe a little about the steroids, kind of what we said, but not the type of backlash that other companies are seeing. So I'm curious to get your perspective on how you guys been able to kind of manage your reputation and stay away from the comment section, as I'll call it.
I think, I'll let Ed talk about it as well, but I think it's objectivity, like Ed said before. We keep it very objective. The audience ultimately decides what they want to decide. We just create a platform. Sometimes in the same film, there's opposing points of views, right? There's an actual dialogue happening. So I feel like when you do that, you at least show the audience that you create equal opportunity for people to deliver that message. You know what I'm saying? And those who want to deliver the message and they want to come to Generation Iron, we most of the time will talk to them and potentially provide the platform. You know what I mean? So I feel like when you're being objective, the audiences, they feel that, and some of course will never understand no matter what you show them. You know what I mean? They're gonna criticize you regardless. But I feel like the majority, like 90% of the people, they're gonna see the objectivity from us, and they're gonna in some ways respect the objectivity, even if sometimes they don't like a certain project or whoever's doing the talking. But the objectivity really helps, I think.
Yeah, and to add to that, I think I think we've reached a point where we aren't too worried about constructive criticism or negative feedback, because at the end of the day, we take, what we hear and what we learn from our audience, and we continue to be better. I think for us, especially on social media, you're right. I mean, you see all these negative comments and really toxic comment section. And, what we try to do is avoid that sometimes and not pay too much attention to that, because ultimately what we learned is that sometimes when people talk, it's actually a good thing. Actually, we get more engagement. We get actually more traction on our projects. I remember when we did a movie on Enhance on this guy, Tony Hughes. Yeah. I mean, this guy was blatantly talking about steroids and and showing people how to take them and what the effects were, and putting 20 pounds of muscle in like 30 days. Yeah. I mean, the comments were horrendous, but I think we realized, even after the movie came out, it was like number one on iTunes and number one on Google. And then we realized these comments stir the pot and obviously continue to create more engagement. Absolutely. On our behalf, it's like Vlad said, it's about objectivity and being able to continue to tell the stories and have the viewers decide for themselves whether what they watch and like, it's up to them. And I think we're able to tell different stories. And I think our audience at this point, they realize that every single movie or every single project and content that we release, it's different, and we're serving different stories for a variety of people.
Awesome. So thank you guys so much. And this has been just first of all, on a personal note, a pleasure. And I don't want to end on a negative. And we were talking about, the big bad comments. So before we go, if you guys can kind of give a piece of advice to someone, whether it's an up and coming filmmaker or someone trying to get into the bodybuilding world, or someone just really trying to improve their health and fitness level, what would you guys say to them?
Well, I can say, without a doubt, I think, you got to build a team. You have to build collaborations. And I think having, someone that you can work with, that you can trust and create, you have the same vision with, to create content with, I think is the number one advice, in my opinion, because some people like to go at it alone a lot of times. And I feel that you're not going to be able to get the results that you think you can get alone. And that comes from experience, I think. And I think when you collaborate and you work with others and you create content with others and opportunities with others, you see the fruits of that labor. And I think, also someone who's also trying to improve their life, you look for what you're passionate about, and you try to apply yourself to that on a daily basis with people that are like-minded individuals. And that's kind of like what we do here. We tend to kind of do that on a daily basis and have, collaborative, calls and meetings whenever we can with people that think the same way and want to create great content.
My biggest advice to the filmmakers that, are getting into the business is when you make any type of project, whether it's a short film, long form film, a YouTube video, try to think of the audience, who is this for exactly.
Right.
Try, even if it's for 20 people, it doesn't matter what the scale is, just try to figure out who would want to watch this. That way it's going to be easier once you finish the film. You don't just run around trying to find the audience. You making the film with the audience in mind already. So I feel like it's going to save a lot of time for a lot of people. And it's a very simple advice to follow, I think, also.
Okay. Thank you guys again so much. Guys, it's been a true pleasure. And if you want to plug the Kick-Ass documentary that's coming out on the 31st, please give it a shout out.
Thank you again, Ariel, for having us. I mean, it's really honestly a pleasure for us as well to be speaking to you and someone who's as passionate about fitness and bodybuilding. We don't find that quite too often, but we're very excited to release Generation Iron 4. I mean, this is a film that we've been working on for the past year. Fortunately for us, we were able to shoot everything before the end of 2019. So we were able to get our production in before COVID hit. And the exciting thing about this movie and this chapter in the series is that it takes place across the country as well. And it highlights natural bodybuilding competitors, and also features Michael Hearn in that, and obviously there's a lot
Kai
of
Green.
And Kai Green. So we're very excited to unveil that movie. That movie will release July 31st. It's going to be very exciting. It has tremendous information about natural bodybuilding competitors. It's a completely different world that most people are used to seeing. And I think people will be very surprised by it.
Awesome. Where can people catch that if they want to tune in?
You're going to see it on iTunes, Google Play, Amazon, all the major platforms around the world, and also Vimeo as well.
Yeah.
So July 31st.
July 31st on demand. If you go to GenerationIron.com, you will find it there, and you will find it on any of those platforms through GenerationIron.com.
Amazing. Thank you guys so much again, and I'll catch you guys soon.
This is the Thought Leaders Podcast.